All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So my name is Nicole Coustier. I'm the founder of Aurelian Coaching, and I am your host today for this month's webinar, which has to do with getting what you want and everything that comes with that. So a few administrative issues before we get underway with the content. Number one is, if this is your first webinar, I want to welcome you. Aurelian Coaching does these free webinars, a different topic every single month. And so if you aren't already on the email list, that is the way to get notified of these webinars and to be able to register for them for free. So the way you get on the email list is to go to aureliancoaching.com/email. Super easy. aureliancoaching.com/email. You can just put in your email address there and you will get notifications of all of these in the future. And number two, and as painful as this is for most people to learn, I don't actually send out recordings for these webinars. I do schedule them multiple times a month for various dates and times so that people in different time zones can access them. But I want you to be present. I want you to be paying attention, taking notes, listening to what I have to say and how to apply it to your own life. And if you have questions and comments, that you can participate, that you should hit up the Q&A or the chat box. I'll be checking those throughout the webinar so that I can address your questions and your comments. I want to maximize the utility of these webinars for you. And so I don't send out recordings. Now, some people, what they'll do is they'll participate in one and then they'll sign up for another one if they want to get additional case studies or the benefit of questions that have been carried over from previous webinars. So that's totally up to you. You can sign up for as many as you like, but be present. Okay. The third thing I want to note is that it's just me. So I don't have slides. I don't bring on a lot of visuals and things like that. I want you to get a sense of who I am and how I coach and how I deliver information. And the way I do that is not through slides. So it's just me. It's just me on these webinars. Okay. That being said, let me start off for those of you who don't know. My name, again, is Nicole Coustier. I am the founder of Aurelian Coaching, which is a firm whose mission is to really serve high achievers. So for many, many years, I worked in very demanding industries, and I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be an achiever in a very demanding industry and to try and get the things that you want out of life and to struggle with competing priorities, to struggle with the burden of responsibility, both home and work. And so that is what I focus on. I focus on high achievers working in very demanding industries to help them solve their trickiest problems and get everything they want in their lives. So part of that is a free webinar series, and that's what you're here to get some good information on today. So let's begin. Okay, so today's topic is how high achievers can get everything they want. What I'm going to be reviewing is why it's worthwhile to surface and pursue what you want. Number two, how do you even begin to do that? And then number three, give you some ideas about how to reconcile some of what feels like competing priorities. Getting what you want, maybe you feel you can't do that because of all these other things. And I want to give you some tips for how to resolve those things and to make sure that you can make some decisions, take some next steps in actually pursuing what you want so that you can, frankly, be more fulfilled, right? As high achievers, we know what it's like to get things done. We're definitely problem solvers, and other people see us as problem solvers, right? So what ends up happening, and especially if you have worked for a number of companies, you are heading up mission critical initiatives, what ends up happening is a lot of times what you want out of life takes a back seat. It takes a back seat because you have duties and responsibilities and you have obligations, whether at home or at work. And so those things are always being addressed first. It's a very noble thing, and it is something that high achievers have always been rewarded for. So this may go back to your childhood days where you were getting gold stars for doing what the teacher wanted, or you were getting accolades and your parents saying that you were proud of you for doing what they wanted. And now the question becomes, well, what do you want? And sometimes we don't even give ourselves permission to surface what we want, because if it feels in conflict with other things going on, well, maybe we just conclude that it can't happen. And so that's the assumption that I want to challenge today. Okay, so let's move on to the first topic. So why do you need to surface what you want and potentially figure out how to pursue what you want? High achievers will all come to a point where this question will be a critical one. And maybe that happens multiple times in your life. I just know that the high achievers that I work with, they achieve a certain level of success. And for whatever reason, things are just not as satisfying as they used to be. Now, that could be because you've actually achieved what you wanted to achieve. And then the question is, well, what next? Or you realize that you're burnt out. You're working so hard on achieving other people's initiatives or fulfilling the role that has been defined for you or that you've accepted for so long. And now you're just exhausted and you're tired and you're kind of wondering, well, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't sustain this, but what else is there, right? So whatever the reason is, you start to come to a point where you need to reevaluate what it is you want and do it through the lens of you personally. Now, this is really, really hard. This is hard because we have been conditioned to work on other people's goals, other people's initiatives. We have been rewarded for that. So that is just part of our conditioning. And it can be very hard for high achievers to separate their circumstances and what everybody else wants and what makes other people happy from what we really, really want deep down inside. And I'm here to tell you that it's very important to surface what you personally, you individually, you only want. The reason that's really important is because of fulfillment. I mean, that is really the bottom line. If I had to summarize it in one word, this angst that you might feel in getting what you want and not feeling you can get what you want, if you continue on that path, you will continue to feel frustration and angst and anxiety and dissatisfaction and a lack of fulfillment. And so many times achievers come to the conclusion that it's one or the other. And now, I don't have a lens on the entire world, but I will tell you this. In my experience, and in the experience of every single person that I've ever coached, it's not one or the other. It's just not. And so the first step in potentially finding a win-win situation is to really open yourself up to surface, what do I really want? And frankly, just admitting, admitting what you want. So that's why it's worthwhile to pursue this. So if you can get on board with that, if you are participating in the webinar because you're like, I don't like the things and I want new things, but I don't know how to get new things. If you see value in surfacing and pursuing what you want, now the question becomes, well, how do you do that? Okay, so this is topic number 2. How do you even begin to surface what you really want? So many times, we're not even in touch with what we really want. It's just, not, think about the conditioning again, right? From the time we were young, we were rewarded for fulfilling the things that other people wanted, right? And if we were never taught how to surface what we want and how to pursue what we want without judgment, right? And with support, if we were never taught that, then the only thing that we're getting is accolades from people when we do what they want. Okay, so how do you even begin? Most of the time when I'm coaching people on this topic, we start with brainstorming. Brainstorming. And you may say, oh, Nicole, brainstorm. Yeah, I know I can brainstorm. Let me tell you about what it means to truly brainstorm. Okay. Brainstorming needs to be 100% unfiltered. Unfiltered, which means that if you're writing this down, if you're talking it out, if you're doing it on the whiteboard, whatever it might be, you're going to have a lot of funky stuff coming out of your brain. That's fine. That is supposed to happen when you're brainstorming. There's supposed to be a lot of kooky stuff that comes out on that piece of paper that you write down. But what I find is that high achievers are conditioned to not brainstorm properly. Even though intellectually you kind of know what it is to brainstorm and you really ought to put all the things on the table. No, what really happens, the behavior that I observe is that high achievers are only writing down the good things, only writing down the good things, right? Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. So brainstorming needs to be totally unfiltered. Everything, even the kooky stuff, comes out. Secondly, is it has to be non-judgmental. Okay. High achievers, the conditioning that we've had over time is that there are good answers and there are bad answers, and you don't want to be the person that puts bad answers out there. And how we define good answers and bad answers has been developed over time through, again, our parents and our mentors and our bosses and our jobs and our spouses, all of the things, right? You may not even notice you're applying filters. So it will take some reconditioning to not have any judgment on what you're writing down. And you can brainstorm in a vacuum just for yourself, for your own personal journaling or whatever it is, and realize that that the judgments of other people are filtering into your private brainstorming exercise. And in fact, what happens is that all of the judgments that you have about yourself are affecting the brainstorming exercise, right? You're a high achiever. You have very high expectations of yourself. I get it. And all of that needs to be left at the door when you're brainstorming what you truly want out of life. You have to leave the judgments about yourself at the door. It's very hard. It's very hard. So what I want you to do to surface what you might really want is to spend just 5 minutes brainstorming. Truly non-judgmental, truly unfiltered. Okay. And what's going to happen is you'll notice two things. One is that you may need to come back to it later. Some people end up having a blank page because truly unfiltered, non-judgmental brainstorming can send your brain into panic mode, fight or flight, right? If your brain is given the challenge to come up with anything and all the things, and if you are not practiced at that, your brain may freeze up. So you may be staring at a blank page for a while. It's okay, right? The second thing that I want you to recognize, so you may need to come back to it, and that's okay. A second thing I want you to recognize is that through unfiltered, non-judgmental brainstorming, what you'll find is maybe as much as 95% of it is just total crap. It's just stuff that you're like, this isn't even, like, I don't really want this, but it's occurring to you. You have to write it down, right? Unfiltered. Here is the reason this is so important. This exercise gives your brain permission to come up with all the things that are deep down inside that you may not be able to access at first with the filters and with the judgments. So if what you're experiencing through this brainstorming exercise is a bunch of crazy stuff that you may not even feel is relevant, right? That's okay. Write it down. Write it down, because what happens is the more you do that, the more your brain is getting the message, oh, it's okay, right? There's no real wrong answer here, right? But if you're filtering, if you're judging yourself, all those things, the brain is going to protect you, and the brain is not going to come up with ideas that may actually work. So you need to give your brain permission, allow yourself to just put everything on the table in order to, even if 95% of it is totally useless, that 95% is really important in order to surface the 5% that's truly brilliant, the 5% that's genuinely creative, the 5% that lights you up. You can't even get to what lights you up unless you go through the 95% of stuff that's totally useless and crap, right? So those are the two things that I want you to keep in mind when you're going through this exercise. It's not bad if you have a blank piece of paper. That's okay. Come back and do it later, right? Your brain needs to get used to it. Or if you're writing things down and lots of it is just kooky, irrelevant, I don't know about this, whatever, that's okay. Keep going. All right. And what I think you'll find through a brainstorming exercise, and especially if you do it a couple of times, is that certain themes will begin to emerge, right? So I talk about brainstorming, but there's also another exercise, which is mind mapping, where you're just writing a bunch of stuff down, and then you start to circle the things that seem similar, or it keeps coming up again and again. Like you've already written it down, but then your brain goes back to it again. So you write it down again, right? So now you're writing something 5, 6, 7 times, right? Your brain becomes fixated on that thing and you start to feel emotion surrounding that thing. Okay. So give yourself permission to just go with the flow here. It's totally fine. Whatever you start to see and whatever patterns start to emerge, as high achievers, sometimes I work with people and they're like, okay, well, now we got to do the thing. Don't even do that, right? Just notice. Just notice. You don't have to necessarily jump into the plan, right? Or if you don't pursue certain things that excite you, you don't have to make it mean that you're abandoning your, desires and like all this. Listen, it's just one little exercise, okay? You could do it a couple of times. See what patterns emerge. Notice how you feel. That's it. That's all you need to do, okay? Don't put pressure on yourself to then do something with it. The value of the exercise is the process. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's how you surface what you actually want. Now, what happens when what you actually want doesn't nicely fit in with where you are right now? Then what? Okay. This is a very important point because what ends up happening is a lot of high achievers, when they can't see the obvious bridge from here to there, they abandon the effort. And they say things like, oh, well, I can't get it anyway, so I'm going to stop wanting it. I'm not going to want the thing that I can't have. What a pathetic, useless exercise to want a thing that I can't have, right? So they abandon what they want. Sometimes people say, well, I can't do it now, but so it's just hanging out there in the future someday when everything is perfectly lined up. And then getting what you want is easy. Okay, well, then I'll pursue it then. Also not helpful, right? So there are high achievers who, when there's a gap between where I am now and getting what I want, when there's a gap and they can't see the bridge, they either say, I must abandon this since there's no obvious route, or they kick the can down the road forever and ever. It's never the right time. It's never the right circumstance. You're never with the right people. But now you are always wanting the thing that you can't have. Two terrible situations to be in. Oh, so awful, right? So what do you do? What do you do? Okay. The first thing, there are a couple things that you do in resolving that conflict between what you want and feeling like you can't get there. Okay. The first is to recognize where your locus of control is versus your locus of concern is. So you guys might have heard of this and seen this in other formats, but basically when you are pointing to all the reasons a thing can't happen, and they have everything to do with other people, with your circumstances, with your job, with your situation, those are externalities that a lot of time we just can't control. Now, we know intellectually as high achievers that there are things we can't control and things we can, right? But knowing that intellectually doesn't mean we're very good at living our lives according to that paradigm, right? We spend a lot of time focusing on externalities that we can't control. And especially when it comes to what we want and all the reasons we can't get what we want, a lot of times that has to do with things in the locus of concern, which is external. If I actually pursued what I want, my spouse would freak out, right? My spouse would be like, where the hell is this coming from? What are you talking about? Right? So you would be concerned about not having support, right? If you have a mortgage and kids in school and, job responsibility, all of those things are in the locus of concern. They're externalities that to some degree you don't have control over. You can't control your partner's reaction. You can't control your boss's reaction or your team's reaction to things, right? You can't even control your kid's reaction, right? So what can you control? You already know the answer to this, right? Yes, people are piping in. You've heard of this difference, locus of control, locus of concern. And what you can control is your own thinking, your own emotion, your own behavior. Now, a lot of people do recognize that they can control their behavior. But when I say you can control your thinking and control your emotions, people are like, no, you can't. Yes, you can. I promise you can. Okay. And so a lot of what I coach people through is how to control their thinking, how to control how they interpret their circumstances, how to control their emotion, how to feel on purpose, and then how to adjust their behavior. A lot of people talk about having good habits and they can't stick with the good habits. And why can't I stick with the good habits? Yeah, that is the stuff that I coach through, right? So, but just recognize as part of this exercise of how to reconcile getting what you want with feeling like you can't get what you want, you may be focusing on externalities that you can't really control rather than internal things that you can control. All right. So you need to turn things outside in, right? Outside in. The only bridge between where you are today and getting whatever you want, whatever that might be, could be a small thing, could be a big thing, doesn't matter, right? But the bridge is 100% you, 100%. If you wait until circumstances change, if you wait until people are different, if you keep trying to influence all the external things, and that's where you're putting all your energy, changing other people, changing your circumstances, changing whatever, or expending energy wishing that things were different. Yeah, that is not the answer to the bridge. Okay. The only answer to that bridge is you, your choices, what you think about yourself and your circumstances, what you feel, determining the emotion that's going to serve you in getting what you want, and leaving behind all the emotion that's hurting you or holding you back, right? And then taking actions that make sense for you, for you. Now, it's not like I'm saying, ignore everything else and ignore everybody else. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. But if you think that the way to bridge what you want and getting and all the things holding you back, if you think that the reason you're not where you want to be or doing the things that you want to do is external, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's all internal. Okay. So that's the first strategy, is to recognize when you surface finally what you want, and then you say, well, everything seems in conflict. I can't get what I want because of A, B, and C. Look at A, B, and C and determine if you're pointing to external things. External things are the reason I can't do whatever. Okay. It'll be really interesting to notice. I have some people piping in here. There's one person that says, they're asking about the practicality of pursuing what you want when you do have family and kids, right? This sounds great, but practically speaking, I can't make a decision without my spouse's support. So how do I reconcile, right? Okay, so this is strategy number 2. I will jump ahead into that in order to answer this question, which is when you identify what is in the locus of concern and you want to say, well, now I need to resolve this gap and this conflict with the locus of control, which is everything that's within my power. I'm still married. I'm still married. Like, I need my husband or wife sign off on a thing before I can just go off and do this thing, right? Yeah. Well, what do you control? What do you control? You don't control your spouse. It's just not true, right? Not true. So you have to decide, how are you going to show up in that relationship, whatever the relationship with might be. Here we're talking about husband and kids, but it could be with your boss, it could be with your business partner, it could be friends, whatever it is. How do you control your own thoughts, emotions, and behavior in order to open up channels of communications where you can have fruitful discussions about getting what you want and how that fits into the larger picture, right? You can't control your husband, your wife, that's true, or your partner. But the question becomes, within the locus of control, what are you prepared to do to open up possibilities? Just possibility. Because right now, when you say, I can't do a thing because my husband would not be supportive, or my wife would freak out and get nervous, or my boss would be like, what the hell are you talking about, right? You are automatically closing the door. Now, the locus of concern is driving all of your behavior, and you throw your hands up in the air and say, well, I can't, right? But if you approach this from the standpoint of locus of control, saying, well, I know that I can figure out a way to communicate this, right? Or I can brainstorm ways to introduce the topic and work on this over time. Or, when I look at the history and the nature of my relationship with this person, we've always actually worked together on things really, really well. And we solve problems together well. And it's that history and that legacy that I can rely upon and leverage in order to help me bridge this gap. Do you see the difference? Yeah. So this is one thing that takes some practice. It takes some practice. And so much of it has to do with protecting ourselves, honestly. We don't want to be disappointed. We don't want to fail, right? But what if it has nothing to do with failure? What if it's just a process like everything else is, right? We have to recondition ourselves away from using the lens of everybody else's wants and approvals and needs, right? And bring it back to ourselves. If we're able to surface something that we want deep down inside, how do we use our locus of control to open up channels, open up possibilities, take a first step, right? This is super challenging for high achievers. I know. Everybody wants the plan. Everybody wants to know how. Everybody wants, the 2-month, the 6-month, the 2-year plan, getting what I want. Sure. But before you can get to that, you need to resolve the conflicts and resolve the issues that come up for you in actually pursuing what you want, or even just frankly admitting this is what I want. Oh, it's so hard for some of us, so hard. Okay. Now, the other strategy that I wanted to share with you in helping to resolve this conflict, that is, so beside the locus of control versus locus of concern, is this exercise in separating fact from what you believe about facts. This is super, super helpful. It's very powerful. Turns out it's very hard. It's super hard for people to separate facts from what they believe about the facts, because so often what we believe feels like absolute truth, but really it's just what you believe. It's not really facts. So what's the difference? Okay, here is what a fact is. A fact is crazy, super simple. Simple, simple, simple. A factual statement is subject, verb. That's it. Okay. There are no, and if you've participated in webinars before, this is something that I talk about a lot, because it's so important in shifting our mindset and getting us to behave in a way where we want to behave rather than kind of our default conditioning. You have to learn how to do this. It's very important. Facts do not have any adjectives, any adverbs, any subjective language, no qualifiers, ifs, ands, buts, especially, no. Facts are super simple. Facts are things that all interested parties would agree to. They would agree to, right? So, and everything else beyond that is a thought or belief. Everything else. So facts are often super simple and a really short list, depending on what you're talking about or what issue you're working through. Super short list of facts, right? Everything else is an interpretation of those facts. Different people will make things mean different things based on their own perspectives and their own lenses. All of those things might feel like truth, but they're not facts. Okay, so let's give an example. Okay. One example that I've used in the past that seems pretty powerful for people is this concept of, and this is a situation that I've coached before, where it's a corporate kind of team environment, and there's a meeting, and there are 3 team members in the meeting, and the boss walks in, and before the boss sits down, the boss says the words, "Guys, we didn't make our numbers last quarter." Right? So if you've participated in these webinars before, you might have heard this example before. That is the only fact of the situation, right? The boss walked in and said the words, "Guys, we didn't make our numbers last quarter." Boss walks in. Fact, boss said words. That's it. Okay. Everybody would agree to that. Now, what happens though is each of the individual team members, and there are 3 of them, made this mean totally different things. One person felt like failure. Another person felt confusion. Another person felt crazy excited, super excited. How do you account for those different reactions? It's because each of those individuals, each of those individual team members made those 2 facts mean something totally different from one another. The person who felt failure made the boss's words mean, I didn't do my job. I didn't fulfill the duties and responsibilities of my position. And they might be feeling fear, right? They might be making it mean my job is at risk. You see how that works? I didn't do my job, hence failure. I didn't do my job, hence fear. I might lose my job, right? Okay, the second person feeling total confusion because that person made those same set of facts, no difference in the facts. That second person made it mean that this makes no sense at all. This person said to him or herself, we did all the right things, so it doesn't make sense that we didn't make our numbers. We ought to have made our numbers. This person's really confused, right? But that person is not interpreting those same set of facts as I might lose my job. That person is interpreting the facts as this makes no sense at all. We did all the right things. Why didn't we make our numbers? Right? That thinking leads to confusion. It may even lead to curiosity, right? That person might also make the same facts mean we need more data, right? That generates curiosity. I wonder what happened here, right? Curiosity, awesome. Now that third person who's super crazy excited, how on earth can you take those same set of facts and feel excitement and motivation? That third person is interpreting the facts as, ooh, there's an opportunity here. We didn't make our numbers last quarter. Awesome. I can swoop in, be the hero next quarter, get the most sales out of anybody, and I can rescue that. I will get my gold star if I just swoop in and come to the rescue, right? Same set of facts, 3 different emotions stemming from 3 different interpretations that feel like absolute truth. So in resolving the perceived gap between where you are now and what you want out of life, there's a gap there. You don't know how to bridge that. One way in resolving that bridge is to separate fact from what you believe about the facts, right? So all those reasons that you identify that are the reasons, excuses, reasons for not being able to get what you want, not being able to pursue it, or not having it already. Why don't you already have what you want? Right? One way to resolve that is to separate facts from what you believe about those facts, what you believe to be truth about your situation. Right? So we talked about locus of control versus locus of concern, right? If you are focusing on externalities, No control. You're not going to be able to get what you want. If you focus instead on what you can do, what you believe, what you feel, how you behave and how you show up. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay. But if what you believe about yourself and what you're capable of, right, and what you should do now versus later, all of those things, if what you believe is still holding you back, start to separate fact from belief, right? Tease out all those things, because what it does is it allows you to challenge whether those interpretations or those beliefs about yourself and your situation might actually be optional. What if you believed something else? What if you took a different lens to yourself and your situation? And maybe there's something in there that could create a bridge for you. Such good stuff. I'm not suggesting that this is super easy, by the way. I've taken, 1 hour, less than an hour, and like walked you through all this stuff. And intellectually, we all understand and appreciate this process, but it could be difficult. You can potentially hit a brick wall. And so go through these exercises. If you are part of the Aurelian Coaching email list, what I'm currently developing is a tool. It has 10 questions that will walk you through this whole thing. 10 specific questions that you can ask yourself. Each of these questions has a 2-minute video associated with them. Okay, so to kind of get you going and put you on the right path to surfacing answers for yourself. And then that will be available. I will share that to people on my email list. So if that's something that you want, make sure you're on the email list. Go to aureliancoaching.com/email, sign up there. And, at the beginning of October, once all of these webinars are done, this particular topic is done, I will make sure that everybody on my email list has that resource. So you can go through this exercise with a little bit more hand holding. Now, even with that, if you're eager to get started and you could just kind of want to get over the hump, there are a couple of options available to you. Number one, you can go to aureliancoaching.com and just sign up for a 1-hour session with me. So if you are doing the brainstorming exercise, but you're finding it really hard, so you want a facilitator, I can help you with that. If you've done the brainstorming and now you're stuck, now what do I do, right? How do I resolve these things? All the things that I've talked about in this webinar, you need help actually doing that next step. Sign up for an hour. That's it. And we'll get you over the hump. It is impossible to have one session and not have a breakthrough. It doesn't happen. Okay, it doesn't happen. You pay, it's $199. So you pay the $199, you have an hour with me, you will have a breakthrough that will get you over the hump. Now, if you want a facilitator through all the things, you can sign up for my Cascade program, and that's 6 sessions. So you can do that as well. But sometimes it's just a matter of getting over the hump, having the one session with the right coach to get you on your way. And maybe you don't want to pay for the whole thing. That's okay. One session, it's all you need. aureliancoaching.com. Okay. Other questions, comments? Super helpful. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm having requests for recordings. I know you want the recordings. Listen, I will consider it. Let me get through all the webinars first. So if I do send out a recording, It won't be for quite some time. Okay. Let me see what else we've got here. So just make sure if you can go ahead and make sure that other people just had an aha duh moment. You're welcome. Go ahead and share this with other people. So if you are on the email list, go ahead and share it. People can also register at aureliancoaching.com/free webinar. So you can share that with other people as well. Okay. How do I decide what I want when, yeah. Okay. So this person is talking about being in a project team. So when there are other team members or where there's a supervisor or boss that is really making all the decisions. Yeah. So when there is something that you want, and again, all the things that I have said apply here. 100% of it applies, but let's apply it specifically to these questions. When you are working in a project team and you want something to happen, there is something that you want, but you feel you can't get because of all the other people, because you're not the decision maker. Fair. The question, let's go through the exercises, okay? So you've been able to identify what you want, right? Now, I want you to go through, like, why don't you have what you want? Why aren't you already there? And if all of your reasons have to do with other people, other circumstances, right? You're already closing off all of your own wisdom. You're already closing off all of your own power. To say that you can't get what you want because of external means you will never get what you want. It'll never happen. It just won't, because of all the things. If you were to flip that to the locus of control rather than the locus of concern, right? And you had to ask yourself, what can I do? What can I say? How do I show up in a way that opens up possibilities? In other words, maybe there's just not the one single thing that needs to be done in order for you to get what you want. But maybe you open yourself up to possibilities and to taking the first step or finding the stepping stone that you need to hop onto to get what you want, right? But it's all about locus of control, all about locus of control. You know, the minute you start saying, I can't get what I want because of all the other things, you're dead in the water. You will continue to feel stuck. I guarantee it, guarantee it. So what you need to do is reframe that. In the locus of control, my beliefs, my interpretations of my situation, the lens that I'm using, how I'm showing up, the things that I'm doing or not doing, saying or not saying, how is that getting me closer to what I want versus getting me farther away, right? If you're not piping up, if you are interpreting your situation as, well, it's pointless. It's pointless. I can't get what I want anyway. So I might as well not. I might as well not show up this way. I might as well not pipe up. I might as well not say the thing. I might as well not engage. Congratulations, you have guaranteed that you won't get what you want. That's how that works. So the answer to the question is, how do I get what I want when I am not the decision maker? I would reframe that question a little bit differently. The question you should be asking yourself is, in the locus of control, how do I show up What can I do to open up possibilities and create stepping stones to getting what I want? That's what you need to be asking yourself, right? How am I interpreting my situation? What are the facts versus what am I making the facts mean, right? The facts are you have a boss, you have team members, right? Colleagues, right? You have a job and you can list the facts of your duties and responsibilities, right? That are part of your job description, right? Those are facts. Now, what you're making it mean is I hold no decision-making power. Those are subjective terms, right? To say, I can't decide, that's up for interpretation, right? Maybe you can't decide on a particular thing, but to interpret your situation as having zero control at all, that's not true. That's not true. Okay, so that was a beautiful question. So I'm so glad. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions or comments. Okay, guys, I hope this was helpful. Make sure you're on the email list. If you're not on the email list, I can't help you, okay? If you want this 10-question exercise with videos to kind of walk you through it for free, giving it to you for free, make sure you're on the email list. aureliancoaching.com/email. Get on the list, share with other people. And if you want a free session, I'm not giving away free sessions if you want to sign up for a session, but just one session, it's $199 to kind of get you over the hump and have facilitated brainstorming, have guidance through this, get your questions answered, that you can do at aureliancoaching.com too. You can sign up for a Pathfinder session. Okay, guys, I hope this was helpful. I'll see you guys in the next webinar. Okay, take care.